Hello, I am the Understudy, and this is the channel where we discuss everything musical theater related. Today we are talking about Barron's AP Music Theory, 3rd edition by Nancy Fuller-Scoggin, BME. This is a long and extensive book, but it's almost all the way through. So I'm working my way through it to learn more, but these videos are a way for me to organize my journey, and I'm really happy that you're here with me. Thank you for staying this long. Before we start, if you have any questions, as always, leave them in the comments. Now, this is part 21, Strategies for Harmonizing a Melody, Free Response 7. So, review the process. In Chapter 9, we learned the fundamentals of how to harmonize a melody. This portion of the AP Music Theory exam is challenging because it requires the student to understand melodies and their implied harmonies, harmonic progression, cadences, and counterpoint. It can be overwhelming because of the fact that there are many possible correct solutions, not just one right answer to harmonizing a melody. Let's review the process and identify strategies for success. It is a timed exam, so 1. The key is given. Identify the notes in the melody using solfege or scale degree numbers. If you want to, write out the tonic, the supertonic, the subdominant and the dominant, and the submediant in a chord stack. Then immediately, 2. Identify the cadences and work them first. 3. Identify possible chord choices and start phrases with tonic, if possible. 4. Determine what harmonic rhythm you are going to use. This is when you choose which notes you are going to harmonize and which notes you will not be part of the harmony, the non-chord tones. 5. Make your selection of the chord and inversion, keeping in mind standard progression, the tonic, subdominant, dominant, tonic function, the desired contrary motion of the bass against the melody, and creating a bass line that is a constant counterpoint to the melody. Check your work to look for parallelism. Part 6, check your work to look for parallelism, retrogression, and the correct solution of tendency notes if they are in the bass, such as a third inversion, dominant fifth chord with a seventh, and a first inversion tonic chord. The menu. These are the choices that are easiest to work with and will create the necessary progression that are the norm of the common practice style. Prepare for the possibility of chromatic harmony. KISS. Keep it simple for success. It is not necessary to use the mediant, the leading tone triad, or the leading tone chord with the seventh chords in the free response 7. So, is there chromatic or non-diatonic note in the melody? Look for the accidental and the note that it leads to. The accidental is usually a leading tone in a new key, and the note the accidental leads to is the new tonic, like we can see here with the B flat to the C. So this would be the new tonic, and this would be the leading tone in that. Tips for writing cadences. Use only the tonic, major or minor, use only the tonic, major or minor, the submediant, major or minor, or the dominant as the last chord of a cadence. Do not invert at the cadence. Write a perfect authentic cadence for the last or the final cadence. These are the most common melodic endings. Let's look at them. Harmonize with the norm for all cadences. So, authentic cadences have we here. If the final cadence melody ends with mi, re, do, 3, 2, 1, like we can see here, for example, or do, ti, do, which we can see here, or do, re, do, which we can see here, then harmonize with so, so, do, in this kind of chord progression. We can see so, so, do, so, so, do, so, so, do, with the very, very common second inversion, tonic, and then the dominant, and then the tonic. If the melody, like we can see here, ends with the final cadence, re, ti, do, like it does here, 2, 7, 1, or possibly fa, ti, do, 4, 7, 1, or even do, ti, do, 1, 7, 1, harmonize with fa, so, do in the bass and the chord progression, like we can see here. I'm trying to see. Okay, so this is when it is in major, and this is when it is in minor. For example, yes, because we cannot use the major subdominant in minor chord. That is why we would not use that there. Anyways, so yeah, here we have this, and we can use, so then harmonize with fa, so, do in the bass and the chord progression of either this this, or this. Half cadences. In free response 7, at least one cadence will usually end with the phrase so, ti, array. So here we have ti, so, re, so examples. Let's just look at the top one for now. If the melody ends with ti or re, the 7 or the 2, your only choice is a half cadence. The so could be the half cadence or an imperfect authentic cadence. If you harmonize as a half cadence, then write with the root position of a dominant. What comes before the dominant? The same three chords that came before the dominant in the perfect authentic cadence, either the second inversion tonic or the first inversion supertonic or the subdominant. Harmonize re, fa, or la in the melody with fa in the bass and either the subdominant or the supertonic first inversion. Harmonize do, mi, so in the melody with so in the bass and the second inversion tonic. The Phrygian half cadence, the first inversion minor subdominant to the dominant, occurs only in minor. We can see this example right here. Sorry. I mean, this is also an example of that, but that is for later. The bass line must be le, so, and the melody is commonly fa, so. So fa, so, and le, so. One of these examples is not correct. Which one? Here's where you must be careful not to write parallel octaves between the bass and the soprano. If the melody is fa so, it does indeed imply a first inversion supertonic to a dominant or a subdominant to a dominant. However, do not write the same thing in the bass that is in the soprano. The second example, this one, creates parallel octaves between the B flat to C, even though the passing tone moves from B flat to B2. It is still a parallel octave and considered an egregious error. Interesting. If two cadences both end with so, the 5, both could be half cadences, or one could be a half cadence with and one an imperfect authentic cadence. If the melody, in this case the cadence, ends with so and is preceded by fi, the raised fourth scale degree, then harmonize fi with the root position 5-5 chord or the 5-7/5 and so in root position. So here we have these examples. We have a 5/5, 5/5, and a 5-7/5. And in this example, the third one here, we wrote the 5/5 in first inversion so that the altered note is in the bass. Note that what was given, the soprano, is a seventh of the chord F and resolves down by a step. What is the lesson of this example? The given melody must be appropriate for the correct resolution of the seventh in order to harmonize it this way. Let's look at deceptive cadences, so either 5 to a major or minor submediant. What pitches in the melody would imply a deceptive cadence? Do or mi? Why not la? Because la in the soprano and la in the bass, you would have parallel octaves. If the bass end is mi or so, you have choices: perfect authentic cadence or deceptive cadence. If you harmonize with a deceptive cadence, then the two chord progressions should be root position. So a dominant to a major or minor, depending on the key, submedians. So what comes before the dominant? Haven't we already answered the questions? Predominant, harmony of either supertonic first inversion or the subdominant, or the the second inversion tonic if it is on a strong beat. So here we have 4 different examples. There's an arrow to this one and to this one that says these two melodic patterns may also be harmonized with a perfect authentic cadence. Use a deceptive cadence if the melodic pattern is in phrase 2 or 3. Use a perfect authentic cadence if the pattern ends with the final phrase. Let's move on to the plagal cadence, the subdominant tonic, either major or minor. So what pitches in the melody might imply a plagal cadence? Fa, la, or do. The subdominant chord 4-6-1, going to do, mi, so, the tonic chord 1-3-5. What melodic endings usually produce a plagal cadence? Fa, mi, fa, me in minor, La, so, or le, so, I minor, are two of the most common. For either of these phrase endings, harmonize with the root position of the subdominant tonic, or you can have them in the major or minor. So here we have three different examples, mi, so, of plagal cadences. Tips for writing phrase beginnings. Once all the cadences have been written and you have completed half the exercise, here are a few tips for the beginning of each phrase. Observe the melody of the first phrase that has been harmonized for you. Are any of the other phrases similar? Sometimes you can gain insight or even clues by studying what has been done for you in the first cadence. Look at the melodic patterns and see if you can use the same progression. What is the last chord written? Does it contain an imperative solution? The last chord is often written as 5, 6. Let's see, I'm going to rephrase that. Is often written as a dominant first inversion or a dominant with a seventh first inversion, requiring the next chord to be a tonic, or a dominant in third inversion, requiring the next chord to be a tonic in first inversion. Remember that a new phrase is just like starting over. You do not have to resolve tendency notes. For example, if the cadence ends with a dominant and the next chord you write is a tonic, T does not have to resolve to Do because the tonic chord starts a new phrase. As we have seen in our study of progression and harmonic dictation, the beginning of phrases generally start with a tonic and very often returns to the tonic on the third or fourth chord. Most common bass lines of these phrases are Do, Ti, Do, so same, either the tonic, so okay. We have the tonic to the submediate, the tonic to the dominant and first inversion to the tonic. This would be a bass of Do, Ti, Do. We also have the tonic to the subdominant in second inversion to the tonic, creating a pedal in the bass of Do, Do, Do. And then we have the tonic to the dominant in second inversion to the tonic in first inversion, creating a passing tone in the bass of Do, Re, Mi. Tips for writing everything else. You do not have to harmonize every single beat. Do not use non-chord tones in the bass. Keep it simple for success. Do not invert carelessly. Second inversion chords in particular must have a function, cadential strong beat, passing, or pedal weak beat. Do not use seventh chords except at cadences. Remember that the interval of a fourth above the bass is considered dissonant and must resolve down by step. There should also be no retrogression, no dominant to subdominant or predominant, or no dominant to a supertonic first inversion, no supertonic to a subdominant. Write standard progressions, such as the submediant to the supertonic to the dominant to the tonic. We will now do 3 examples of melodic harmonizations together. So here we have an example in F major. This is the starting note of where you would start. These are all the chords that we need. Harmonize with primary chords whenever you can. And the primary chords are the tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. So what do we know for sure? After identifying the scale degree numbers or solfege of the melody, we can determine that the use of Fi in measure 4 requires the chord outside of F major, and the B flat at the end of the measure is simply to return to the diatonic 4th scale degree. Phrase 2, the start here phrase, right here, cadence will have a secondary dominant resolving to the dominant to create a half cadence. The phrase 3 ends on raise. The phrase 3 ends on re. Therefore, the cadence must also be a half cadence. Why? Because the chords ending a cadence are only the tonic, the dominant, or the submediant. The only chords that includes the second scale degree, or re, is the dominant. Therefore, it is a half cadence. The 4th phrase ends with mi, re, do. That's our signal to write the normal or standard for perfect authentic cadence. So the second inversion tonic to the dominant 7th chord to the tonic in the bass. So step 1, complete the cadences. It might look something like this. You can see this standard here, you can see the here, and you can see here and here as well. So the phrase 2 cadence chords function as a dominant to a tonic in the key of C major, signaled by the B flat, the leading tone in C major. It is in root position, as there are two cadences chords in phrase 3 to keep it simple. Step 2. Start with the phrases with the tonic, if possible, then decide on the harmonic rhythm. This establishes what notes are to be harmonized and what notes are to be considered non-chord tones. It is not necessary to harmonize every beat and do not harmonize every note when 8 notes are added to the melody. Do not use non-chord tones in the bass line. When in doubt, list the choices for possible harmonization. So step 3, fill in the beats between the cadences. This might look something like this. Notice the anacrusis on the phrase 3 is fa leading to mi. We harmonized it with a root position dominant 7th chord resolving to the tonic. Measure 6 has fa mi in the melody as well, which we harmonized with a dominant 7th chord. The numbers between the staves represents the intervals between the soprano and the bass. Remember, you are creating a consonant counterpoint. This system of checking also quickly shows if you have parallel fifths or octaves. Let's move on to example 2 in G major. We have the little starting arrow right here. And we have our chord menu right here. So what do we know for sure? The harmonization of beat 3 in measure 3 with a dominant tells us that the B is functioning as an accident passing tone and is a non-chord tone. The use of the Fi in measure 6 requires a chord outside of G major, and the C natural in measure 7 is simply a return to the diatonic 4th scale degree. So step 1, let us complete the cadences. Might look something like this. We have harmonized the cadence at the end of phrase 2 with a dominant, creating a half cadence. The note is in the melody, T. There is no other choice. The third phrase ends with a 5 or so, but is preceded by Fi. So we harmonize with a half cadence with a secondary dominant. Those two chords function as the dominant to the tonic in the key of D major, signaled by the C sharp leading tone in D major. Our final melodic phrase ends with re, ti, do, which we know goes with fa, so, do in the bass. We have chosen the first inversion of the supertonic, the dominant to the tonic. Aim for contrary motion. Step 2. Start with the tonic if possible, then decide on the harmonic rhythm. This establishes what notes are to be harmonized and what notes are to be considered non-chord tones. Remember, you only need 2 chords per measure. It is not necessary to harmonize every beat, and do not harmonize every note with 8 notes are added to the melody. Do not use non-chord tones in the bass line. When in doubt, list the 3 or sometimes 4 choices of possible harmonizations. So here is a possible solution. Step 3, fill in the beats between the cadences. Remember that each phrase is like starting at the beginning. In phrase 2, we used tonic and dominant harmony and chose to use the tonic triad in root position in both places and the dominant triad in first inversion. Why? Firstly, it provides contrary motion. Second, if we had used all root position triads, we would have a perfect octave to a perfect fourth to a perfect octave to a major third and the counterpoint between the bass and soprano. By inverting the dominant triad, we have a perfect eighth to a minor third to a perfect octave to a major third, and eliminate the direct fifth and the direct octave, similar motion into a perfect interval in bass soprano voice pair. The last phrase works nicely harmonizing the C natural with the supertonic and identifying the B as a passing tone and using the suggested progression of the submediant to the supertonic to the dominant to the tonic to end the phrase. It works well by using the supertonic in the common first inversion position for the fa, so, do bass line. The third phrase ends with a half cadence, preceded by the dominant over the dominant, or the 5 over 5, in a root position. In measure 5, we have chosen to harmonize beats 1 and 2 with tonic, and to keep it simple, the B is a passing tone. The first inversion subdominant leads us gracefully to the first inversion dominant, where T must go to do. Step 4, check your work. Is there contrary motion between the bass and the soprano? Check for parallelism. Does the progression follow the tonic, subdominant, dominant, tonic progression? If you have written the dominant to the tonic or the dominant to the submediant or used a 7th chord in any version, do the tendency notes resolve? Have you written viable cadences with only the tonic, the dominant, or the submediant at the fermatas? are the cadence chords are the cadence chords 2 chords per cadence in root position. Let's move on to the third example. Oh, this is, did I not show you this? This should be the beats fill in with this is step 3. Anyways, can take a chance to look at it now. Let's move on to number 3, an A flat major. So step 1, complete the cadences first. We have the starting point here and we have the chords here. Create a chord stack in the key, label the melody using solfege or numbers if this technique is helpful. Watch your time. Also, notice the similarity between this and this. And you also have this resolving to that. So we notice in phrase 1, let's see what this might look like, the cadences. So we notice in phrase 1 the use of the leading tone triad in first inversion leading to the first inversion tonic, the norm, forming an ascending pattern in the bass and ending with an imperfect authentic cadence. Phrase 2 features fi passing between mi and so at the cadence, and the third and fourth phrase both look like they imply dominant tonic harmony. So step 2, decide on harmonic rhythm. Determine available choices starting with the tonic if possible. Might look something like this. To avoid a direct fifth where we started the second phrase in the first inversion tonic and harmonized both the second and seventh scale degrees in measure 3 with a root position dominant. Once again, we chose a first inversion tonic because an A flat here would have created parallel octaves. The second inversion dominant on beat 4 is a passing second inversion. Notice the segment in the box, this little box here, is essentially the temporary key of E flat major. So the progression of submedian first, so this progression that you can see here, the submedian in first inversion to the 5/5 to the 5, is the same as the supertonic first inversion to the dominant to the first, or the tonic, in the key of the dominant. We begin phrase 3 with root position tonic and once again employ the supertonic first inversion to the dominant to the tonic, leaving only one more chord before completing phrase 3. We decided to see what it would look like if we opt to use 2 quarter notes for the dominant and the dominant seventh in the next measure. Here we can see this, I think. Looks good. Now fill in the remaining blanks. Might look something like this. So step 3, fill in the beats between the cadences. Phrase 3 and 4 both lend themselves to the use of a dominant 7th chord. In phrase 3, the 4/3 melodic pattern provides the correct resolution of the 7th, and again in phrase 4, where this time we started the phrase with a similar or familiar tonic to second inversion dominant with the 7th to the tonic, and do, ti, do in the bass. Step 4, check your work. Remember, there's more than one way to harmonize a melody, just as there are many possible solutions to part writing examples. Is there contrary motion most often between the bass and soprano? Check for parallelism. Does the progression follow the tonic subdominant dominant progression? If you have written the dominant to tonic or dominant to submediant, or use the 7th chord in any version, does the tendency notes resolve? Have you written a viable cadence with only the tonic, dominant, or the submediant at the fermatas? Are the cadences chords in root position? A few more comments about exam strategy. Since time is limited to 45 minutes to accomplish both part writing examples, the free response 5 and 6, and harmonizing a melody, free response 7, I suggest you begin with free response 7. Identify the melody with solfege or numbers and complete all 3 cadences. Then go directly to the part writing exercises and complete both, finishing harmonizing the melody with your remaining time. In this way, you will be sure to earn 3 points out of 8 for correctly completing the cadences should you run out of time. Make sure you practice timing yourself on these 3 free response questions that you can see in the next little practice example or quiz thing that is right after this. because this is the end of part 21. So thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, leave a thumbs up and consider subscribing, though no pressure. If you don't want to for whatever reason, it would be your choice. You know, you can do whatever you want. Post any questions down below and I will make sure to answer them. Thank you so much for watching.